Welcome to the second part of Agenda Africa Forum, organised by Iberian Lawyer. Please let me introduce Jeremy Cornick, partner at Clifford Chance, who will be moderating this next session on opportunities in Angola. Thank you very much.
On this session, obviously, we want to talk about what is going on in Angola and what the opportunities are. I think law firms generally focus on inward investment, but actually I'm beginning to see that there are a number of very serious opportunities to represent people on an outward investment. That, I think, just demonstrates how strong the economy is becoming and how strong some of the indigenous companies are becoming. We're going to talk about both those opportunities, I hope, in the next hour. But Francisco, can you hear us now?
Thanks to everyone for inviting me. As you're familiar with Angola, you would know that over the past 10 years, Angola has been one of Africa's fastest growing economies. Post-Civil War, Angola needed, and still does need, to update its legislative pact, or its legal framework. Now, this update of the legal framework has been going on at a very fast pace. So to go on to the topic of overregulation, some of you talked on some of the laws that have recently been introduced in Angola, and I'll just go through some of them and have some discussion around it. Angola in 2011 updated the private investment law. Some may argue that this new law was necessary in order to clarify issues that were not clear on the previous law. Others will actually argue that made foreign investment more expensive. You'll find some other people that will argue, well, we want to attract investors that either have strong financial backing or have know-how to give to the country, and so the new law will encourage that. As with many other laws, does Angola have the institutional capacity to oversee what it regulates? We are trying to ensure we have the right framework. Others are saying, no, we have the right capacity right now. It's just a matter of moving them to the right places so that they actually start doing what they need to do. Most talked about these days is the new foreign exchange law, which essentially marked the end of the foreign exchange benefits that the oil and gas sector benefited from for many years. You create business plans based on certain assumptions. And these assumptions, some of them are based on the legal framework that you see in a particular country. Changes in the legal framework means that you have to change your assumptions. Some of these new laws mean that legal advice is more welcome than ever. However, the advisor needs to be fully versed on the country, and forums such as these do assist in getting a wider understanding, but I guess there's nothing better than being on the ground and having a fresh perspective.
Francisco, that's really helpful. Do you feel that operating in Angola from that context is easier now, more difficult?
I believe it actually is becoming easier. Now, new laws do make it more difficult because you have to follow more laws, you have to comply with more laws. But it becomes easier to pass the message regarding other laws in other countries that you also have to comply with.
Thanks, that's a helpful answer. So, Pedro, he's going to talk to us about the impact of current legal reforms in the oil and gas sector.
Well, good morning. For a moment there, I feared that as things progress, you realize that actually the new system, the new framework, does actually make sense and can actually be workable, and it allows your operations to continue. Possibly will be required to change a certain number of assumptions, and what is the aim, and are they properly justified, and how they've affected the energy sector in Angola, the oil and gas sector in Angola. One is the most obvious, which is the foreign exchange law. Another less obvious change that we found has impacted the oil and gas sector was the private investment law. This law has had a huge impact in the sense that it came 1 year before the foreign exchange law. So we come to the problem of the foreign investment project, or the private investment project as it's called in Angola. Now, because the new law came in 2011, nobody factored this possibility into their business plan. The new law is significantly more restrictive than the previous 2003 law. One thing that it has done is require the scope of the foreign investment to be clearly defined. And so I think what we need to be careful now is to negotiate both with, the international oil companies. They've got to be open to these possibilities, and for the foreign investors that are required to plan their operations within the general framework of foreign investment in Angola. The other consequence of all these changes is the increase of the Angolan content into these projects. The new foreign investment law, I think one of the principal aims is the requirements to increase the level of training and the level of involvement in local infrastructure development to compete in the market, in their own market, which I think is a very positive development.
The question I've got for you, Pedro, is what is the net effect for businesses? It seems to me just a cost.
It is a cost if you planned it right. If you haven't planned it right, as I was saying, and the plan was so different to what is now required, it is more than a cost.
But for the majority of people starting off with a new business now, it's just a cost that has to be factored in.
Yeah, it's just a cost, and actually factoring in these legal changes and realizing that they're there and that you need to think about them.
Pedro Neto is the next speaker. He's going to talk to us about opportunities for project finance and investment in Angola.
I've seen since the end of the conflict in 2002 a huge reconstruction effort. Some of the beginning of that reconstruction effort was mainly due to the China effect. At that time, China was really the only country that was willing and came forward and presented at the time the first credit line. They went rapidly to 7 billion. What we have seen in Angola, mainly, and the first credit lines from China was a kind of closed system. It was China giving the money, Chinese firms doing the construction. I think the issue of the private investment law, the question of being able to understand those rules need to be compliant and you need to prepare for presenting the process. I think perhaps one of the things that we lack in terms of the private investment law, and you mentioned about investment from Angola abroad, is that the law just doesn't define anything about investment going out. Just states that we should follow the same rules, but it is not a clear, and that is, to be honest, is a strong opportunity for legal firms, for advisory firms in helping clients to structure entities to go to do investment abroad, because many of the investment that we have seen abroad from Angolan entities, I think nobody really verified if it was investment going out of Angola effectively.